Okay, so you can see these little metal straps, they hold the lid on. I'll show you. If you want to see a reference photo, this was actually made, like, this is just a replica of a 1944 cartridge crate. Okay, you can see the metal brackets there. And they may have had a screw or some kind of a string or something to hold it. I think I've seen pictures where they run through the top here with a knot, excuse me. I guess they would just cut the knot and then this would flip forward and the lid would come off. So I'll just show you so you can see the lid. Make sure this is focused in for you. So you see here how these go over top. Okay, so that's how they go. And then you can see that the lid won't come off because these brackets hold it on. So I imagine they were, like, I'm not really sure how they locked these out. Like if they're dropping these off, let's say on the beach, you know, like they're cases with ammunition, you know, magazines, etc., and flares and mortars. They're different sizes, like some are 2 feet, some are 18 inches, some are 16, you know, like depending on the munitions, right? But I think they either had a nail through the top here, or I've seen where they've had a piece of rope or string and a knot that goes like through here. And I would imagine that they would just cut that knot and then the rope would pull out and this, like this would flip like that, and then they just lift this. I mean, they wouldn't even need to take the rear one off, see? Because it would slide out, see? And then the munitions, which are like these are Bren gun boxes for the magazines, and you can see that they sit in there like that. I might as well just show you this now since they're here. And these were a fluke. Like, I never measured these. Like, I built these after. This is, I should mention it now. So when I built these, I drafted from photos and and from some reference. I built these, I think they're 18 inches or something. But anyway, I never built these until later, like after these were built. And when I put 3 together, I went, wow, I can't believe these fit in there like that, like total fluke. And then I said, I'll build one more and see if I can get 4 in there. And you're not going to believe this. Look at that. Like that is, I've never had anything like this happen to me in all my scratch building experiences where I fluked out like that. Like, isn't that great when that happens? Because there's no way I want to build these again. Like, I got, 3, 4, 5 of them, I think. But so, yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it? Okay. The ammo crates for 303. Okay, how's everybody doing? So rather than just show you the actual airbrushing part, which I find to be really cumbersome and not very conducive to good video, it's just airbrushing, okay. For most of you know, I just use this. It's just a basic airbrush. This one's Talon USA Pash. I like Pash. They're the Volkswagen or Ford or Chevrolet of airbrushes. They just work. They get the job done. So I just basically airbrush these with buff. I like to add white to this. Just, it's up to you. I don't really care really what the name of the, I just look at the color. Like I don't really care what the label is. Like, yeah, it's buff. I use buff a lot. Green, olive green, whatever. Like this for the ammo boxes for starters is XF13 for these. Like I don't really care because I'm going to put multiple washes on these anyway. Like it's the end result that matters in the end. How you get there, I don't think it really matters. And if you take different approaches, you'll learn more. So rather than just one basic system. So these are a good base color for wood, I find. Buff XF57. Here's some ones like earlier crates I built, sort of prototype ones, and then I finally got down to the actual exact prototype. I don't know if I showed you this, but here's one that was built. This is built based on a prototype from 1944 for 303. They were different sizes too, like depending on like they just built them on jigs by the, probably millions of these. But they had hired companies and contractors to do it. And they would have been different sizes, etc. So I think these are 2 feet by, or 20 inches by 16 or something. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is, now that I have these painted, some of these will go on the inside. The other ones, I don't even know if I'll use them because I want to just show a few inside the crate. So I got this, at the local brick and mortar store. I was at military models section. And it's a stencil, a wood grain stencil from Taiwan. Wood grain texture L2 stencil, photo etched. That's all it says on it. Used for wood grain texture with an airbrush. You can see the effects that you can get from it. The trick is, I think, for this, I've done a lot of masking before, is to go from light to dark, or you can do reverse, but very subtle colors. So I have a few other shades of colors. Okay, I'll just show you them. Like, see, this is the buff, and then notice, was that the buff? Oh no, this was the buff that I'd added white to. Then this is straight buff. See how it's different? So they're both buff, but this had white standard buff. And then this is another color I like, wooden deck tan. So I'll go boom, boom like that with the mask. And then I have a sort of a reddish brown. I might try that as well. Okay. But I've already put texture into these with a razor saw, which I like, which you can make pop with a wash, like an enamel wash or oil wash later at the very end, even acrylic if you want. So I'll just lay this, got a protective plastic on it, which you won't put back on. I'll just clean this with IPA. Once again, I'll be shooting acrylic, so it'll be easy to clean. So I'll start with these, like one of these here. So I'll probably have to tape off these runners, or these braces, because you don't want the grain going across those. Right? The grain would run this way, and how are you going to, it's a lot of masking if you try to apply this to those, which I probably won't, because they're distressed with a razor saw. So I'll just mask off with some Tamiya tape, and then I'll lay this on. And I'll just take the, the darker color, and I'll just, do a couple passes on it, flip it around, and then just see the effect it gets, and then add an additional, pin wash or relief wash or whatever after that. And then what I'll do is I'll add some graphics to these with some model railroad decals and some other additional masking, okay? Okay, so I just want to show you the stencil effect. Now the problem with videotaping this is because you're doing such similar colors, like different shades, like the first shade was buff, XF57, and then the second one is wooden deck tan, XF78, and then the third one is actually wooden deck tan, but I added a little bit of linoleum deck brown, like just to redden it up a little bit, like another shade. So you have three colors for very subtle variations that will look really good collectively when the wash goes on, but it's hard to convey it under video, but I'll try to show you here. Okay, so you can see that there's the buff. You can see that I did lay this on, and I did the wooden deck tan. You can sort of see it there, see? Now, another thing too is if you want really sharp grain, you need to lay it on a flat surface, but because I have this wooden bracing, there's a gap between, so you're going to get softer edges, but that's okay. You'll still get the effect. So what I'll do is, let's see, what's a good side? I'll put that there. I'll just show you, excuse me, I'll just show you here first what the pattern would look like with a little bit more contrast on this white piece of paper, okay? See that? Isn't that neat? I mean, that is cool. So if you vary that up, or even just two colors, you already have a really far out wooden base coat, like with grain effect, that if you can, with additional scribing and washes, it's going to look really awesome. So let's lay this on here and see what it looks like, if it's even transmittable under this media. Sorry if my hand's in the way there. Okay, so you can see sort of the lines on the tape more, and it's very subtle. But that's what you get. And I think personally that if you just use two colors, like just the buff I'm going to use, and then this sort of red-brown on these crates here, just because I think I'll get a better contrast, but you can see the difference. Like there's the buff, there's the buff with the wooden deck tan and the sort of reddish brown. So it's up to you, right? You just have to decide. But that is very, very cool. And then I'll just put this on a yogurt lid and just pour isopropyl alcohol over top of it, and it'll wash that stainless steel stencil off nice and new again with a brush, and it's good for the next round, okay? Cheers. So most of you know that I airbrushed these first, and then I taped off these wood brace pieces. So they're like the buff color, remember? And the reason why I did this is because these will stand out more, because this is basically the airbrush base painting, and now I'm going to show you what I do with a traditional brush, in this case the Vallejo model acrylic paint and water. Okay, now I'll show you on these two, because these are the two samples that I built first before I finally figured out how to build these properly. You can see this opens up like the prototype. This lid comes off, and then you can see that the Bren gun clip boxes that sit inside it, and they hold 4 of these, okay? All right, so what I'm going to do, you can see there's some there as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what I do. Now, there's a couple of, well, there's different styles of paints. Like you can use enamels, like there's the AK system. Like I just want to show you this. I get all my paints from Inner City Trains and Hobbies for model railroad purposes and for train purposes. So if you're a military modeler or model railroader, you can get all the paints. They got AK, Vallejo, Tamiya, and other paints, and all diorama accessories. So they cover all my needs, and that's why they're my favorite brick and mortar store. Plus they're close. And you don't see a lot of brick and mortar stores nowadays. But anyway, so you can use this, like this is enamel. These are basically enamel. Now, these are really no different. Like if I showed you these three colors, like let me just show you something quick. So these are enamel washes, right? I'll just show you the color on the bottom. See that? For wood. See the color? Now, I didn't use these for this. You can, and they're great. Like enamels have their advantages too. I have a little bit of trouble with the odor. That's why I tend to shy away from them, but they are fantastic. Oils, enamels, acrylics, they're all good. And you can work them all in together if you think it through, or you get a little bit of experience with them. And they all have their pros and cons. I like the transparency of the enamels, but sometimes I don't like the darker washes because they darken the wood too much. Whereas with acrylics, you can keep the wood looking a bit lighter, okay? However, these are really great, and I do use them from time to time, okay? Now, these three are the same, basically the same colors I just showed you, but they're water-based. And they're Vallejo Air. Just because they say air doesn't mean that they're just for the airbrush. I mean, they're not thin enough anyway. These ones, model air, are the same as the air, but the pigment's a bit thicker, so maybe you get more bang for your buck here. So these I just use with a traditional brush. I don't shoot these through the airbrush, as I mentioned before. However, I do shoot this paint for all my base paint, which I mix with either their X20 thinner, or if I want to save money, which I often do, I buy the larger volume isopropyl alcohol 99%, or 50% or 70% to thin my paint with, as most of you know. And I do it for economic reasons because it works and it's way cheaper than buying this all the time. I would use this for your clear coats though, but for basic weathering and flat coats and bases, I'm not going to waste my money using all this up. I'm going to use the isopropyl alcohol. Or you can use water. This is just water in a spritzer bottle. You can mix. To me, a paint has got ethanol. Like it has a really bizarre ingredient. Like you never be able to make sense of it. But you can mix it with isopropyl alcohol. You can use like a type of, I don't know if you can use the enamel, but I've heard of people using their lacquer thinner and water. So go figure, right? That's why they call it Chimera paint. But it's excellent airbrush paint, and the flat qualities are second to none. Now here's the three colors that I can successfully paint wood with. Once I base coated, remember I base coated these with buff? Like these haven't been painted yet. This one has, and this one's sort of half done. So these are the three basic colors that I have a lot of success with when I paint wood. This is 71.074 beige, and it almost has a sort of a yellow hint to it. You can see it on the tray here with the three colors I put out. See that? Okay, that's the beige, and then there's this wood color, 71.077 wood, and then there's this color which nobody ever buys, and I'm going to show you. Too bad, because this is wood, or sorry, called smoke, 70.939. I put this on as a wash. This has a kind of transparency to it that's very unusual to most of the opaque colors of the Vallejo line, which looks quite dark here, but this is the magical final filter that you put on with a bit of water and a wash, I'll show you, that really unifies the wood colors that you lay on, okay? So the first thing I want to do is I'll put these ones aside, and I'll show you what I've been doing here. So this, like this side, I basically finished with acrylics. And then what I did is I used some of this panel liner by Tamiya. Now this is enamel based, it's not water based, but I use it at the very end as a darker, kind of sharper sort of, relief wash, or what some people will call a pin wash, okay, just to darken, but you can do that. You can put this over acrylic, no problem. However, all this is really is just either, to me, enamel brown or even the Umbro. You can make your own washes. Like all these panel liners, they're all just thin washes already mixed for you with a brush. That's all they are. They just make the procedure more convenient for those that aren't as schooled in paint chemistry as some are, or you will become the more you paint. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I do here. So I just take this side. So this is the side that, oh, where's the bare side? Yeah, right here. This is the side that was based out with Tamiya. And I'm just going to wet it down. The key with acrylics is to wet the whole panel down. And then I'm going to take some of this wood color and I'm just going to like lay some on like this. That's probably too much, so I can lift some of that. Or I can just go like this. And I'd already just put a kind of a wood filter on it. And then I'm going to take some of this beige, and then I'm just going to pick off like one board. I don't worry about overrun too much because it's going to get unified when you put a wash on it. So that's all I do is I just get into a groove and I just start painting like that. Like here, okay, here's one side that I haven't done yet. And I'll wet that all down. So I just sit back, relax, and I just start picking off just a little bit, like just add a little bit of color, like just vary the planks a little bit. And I really like this beige because you can really lighten the plank up nice. But you don't want to cover it all up because you did all that prep work with the airbrush first, okay? So that's what I do. Now, I want to show you what the wash does in just a minute, okay? Okay, so let's talk about some of the darker washes. So these were the three colors that I used. Remember the beige, the wood, and I haven't used the smoke yet, which will be the last wash. Okay, these are just the basic steps. You can improvise these any way you want, right? This is just a basic fundamentals of getting some of the filters working for you to get this nice wood grain like effect, okay? Okay, so this is cyanide gray. If you buy the Vallejo wood weathering kit, you'll get cyanide gray in there. You'll get this wood color and some of the other colors like sands and so on. It doesn't really matter if they're exact, but as long as they're close and they vary like that, then you're going to get this effect. So here's a little bit of cyanide gray as a sort of the first step in the shadow or even graining effect, and I'll show you what it does. So I just take a little bit of water and let's just wet this down again, okay? And let's take a little bit of this and show it and just watch what happens. So let's stab in a little bit. See how it's run into the planks, the cracks between the planks, see that? And into some of the grain. Just make sure that's in focus right there, just so you can see it better. See? Okay. So that is another type. See the wood effect? That looks really cool. So I'm going to let that dry before you put anything else on because you don't want to lose that. So let's have a look at this one. I'll show you what the wash does. Okay, this side here is dry. So you can see that there's been some washes on here. Okay, now watch this. So let's just wet this down. Those layers are dry. That's the key to acrylics, is just let each layer filter. Just be patient, put it aside and do another one, and by the time you get back to it, it'll be dry and ready for the next layer. Okay, now watch this. This is the smoke color. This is the color that when you go to the hobby shop, they always have lots of. And that's okay for me because I like them and they're there when I want them. But this is a color that everyone should have if you like to do gun stocks, anything wood, and you want a final wash. it just seems to unify it all together. So watch this. And you don't need much. Okay, last but not least, and I almost forgot this last layer, and I'm going to show you. See this color right here? 70.939, 70.939 smoke. How many times do you ever buy that color? I bet you, most of you don't. Because you don't know what it is. You just think it's just a brown color. Well, this is this is a filter. This is a really nice filter paint. So I take some water, okay, and I wet down the surface. Let's do these lids because they've been done, right? Remember there was the Tamiya base coat, and then there was the Vallejo colors that I just showed formerly, right? Or previously. Now, excuse my arm for a second there. I'm going to grab some of this smoke right here with a wet brush. I always wet the brush first and then knock the water off. And then I dip the end of my brush in like this. And here I'll show you. Let's do it on this one. And I always play around a bit first. I'm going to drop some into this little knot hole. Oh yeah, okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover the whole panel. I always do a little test part first like that because you might want to just leave it like that. Like according to your style. Okay, see that? When this dries, see there's a little bit of a subtle difference. When this dries, it just unifies everything, like the wood. It's just, oh, I just love. You know, the nice thing I like about this, and I know you can get effects from enamels and acrylics and oils, and I'm not against any of those. You just have to go with your style and whatever you can tolerate. But especially in my last half of my life as a modeler, I just couldn't stand the solvent smell. And I started getting into acrylics. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of it with the IPA, with Tamiya, but it's not that bad. It really isn't. It evaporates so fast. And it's not nearly as toxic as like enamel or lacquer thinners. And the acrylics dry really fast. I've heard people say, well, enamels, they dry fast. Well, yeah, they dry faster than oils, but they don't dry faster than acrylics. See that? And you can just, wow, that looks really good. So let me just move this out of the way and let's, I haven't added the ropes to these either. I'm putting the ropes on. I'll just say this in closing. Like the ropes have knots on them and the knots sit in these little reveals that I cut and the holes are already drilled. So there's rope handles. You feed the rope in, you tie a knot on each end and you pull on it and it's like the rope. That's what forms the handle. So let's just wet this down. Let's grab some more of this 70.939 smoke by Vallejo model color. And let's drop it into this, these are planks. Okay. Painting like this with acrylics is a little bit of a learning curve, but if you practice enough, like you'll pick it up and there's no going back. You can always pull in your enamels and oils on top of it, but you'll have mastered everything by then. And this makes a really nice pin wash too. Okay, so there you go. That's the final color. Smoke. Okay. Okay, how's everybody doing? So finally getting to this stage where I'm starting to add a little bit of symbols and signage and font, etc. onto the ammo boxes just to capture that look. Now, there's all kinds of different variations that I've seen. I got quite a few photos here, but I'll just show you this one because this is a reproduction. It was faithfully done. It was one type of wooden ammo box. They were all very similar. They're built on jigs. They're built probably millions of them, but they had different, you know, placards and notations. Like I've seen a lot of, well, like a lot of the 303 cartridge ones I've seen are like 4 or 5 different styles of, you know, font and labeling and everything. So there's no one standard, although they were marked though, okay? So I've basically masked off the painted parts, and I'll show you the decals that I'm gonna use. So these are all model railroad decals and like dry transfers. Like these are from Woodland Scenics, right? I used some of those on the carrier. And then there's these, look at these for Linden Productions. Like I think I bought these like 40 years ago or something. $9.50? Like I must have been crazy to pay that much for these. Anyway, there's a few on here that I like that are like no smoking within 50 feet and etc. So I'll put those on the white background. And then these are model railroad decals, okay? You can see I got them from Microscale. HO scale, 63 to 75 foot center beam data, right? So there's a lot of data on here that you can use, like a lot of warning font and other smaller font that you can use creatively in different scales, not just 1/16th, but 1/35th as well. You could probably get away with some of the really small font that's not really legible. Well, it is actually if you put a magnifying glass on it, but you wouldn't notice it with the naked eye. And here's some interesting ones: hazardous material placards for freight cars. Now, I'm going to be careful with these. The ones that are not legible I can use, and then there's a few here, explosives, keep fire away, which I can probably use some of those. And then here's some font, right? N scale though. So remember HO and N to vary your sizes of font and placards, etc. This is block Gothic letters, which I'll use for when I do the cartridges and, you know, Mark 7, etc. like that, like on some labels. Okay, so here's the ammo boxes, and I masked them off basically, and I put a round red circle on these because I'm going to put a number 6 there, because that's really apparent right there, number 6, and number 6 on the top lid. So I also did these lids. I just traced this circle and cut them freehand and then tweaked them with a small little pick, and they're good enough. You know, you can use a rotary cutter, but I didn't have one handy, so I just do them by hand. Oftentimes I like doing stuff by hand because if you're not accurate with your measuring device, you won't be accurate with your cutting either. See what these look like. Oh yeah, that looks pretty cool. I'll put a warning one there. These are probably, there might be grenades or teller mines or something, or a different type of explosive on these two. So I'm going to have a little bit different font on these ones. I did cut squares at first, and then I thought, I'm just going to use 4 pieces of tape. It just was way easier that way. Yeah, so these are starting to really look the part, aren't they? You know what I mean? So what I'll do then is I already clear coated these as they were masked with semi-gloss Tamiya clear coat, just to help the dry transfer stick to the red dot and the white placard sections, like the decals, etc. And then what I'll do is I'll flat coat these when they're done. I really like these metal braces, how they turned out, like they're functional. Like that's the way they were. They just went on like that, and then the metal brace went over the lid and held them in place. So, okay, so that's what I'll do with those. Just add some random font, etc. in the cartridges, and they should be good to go. So these are the Verlinden dry transfer productions. These are so old, like I don't even know how reliable they're going to be. The first one that I did right here, no smoking within 50 feet, I had to do it twice. I only have 4 of them. This is the 3rd one. So I'll try this. I mean, I'll just see how it goes. Normally I use a pencil, so I'll try this by just penciling over. And this white, these like white masked off squares were clear coated. I mean, that should help the adhesion because there'd be more surface layer if you looked at it under a microscope. However, the other ammo box that I just showed you didn't work out 100%. So what I'm going to do is try that pencil and then just take this bamboo and rub it again, burnish it down. You know how it is the first one you try it on the side that's not going to show or whatever, because you never know. And you'll learn something, always in this game. Something new, no matter how old you are, there's always a challenge and something that can go wrong. So let's have a look at this and see. I'll peel this off and see if it worked. Ah, okay, it worked. Pretty good anyway. Good, because I only had one left and it wasn't that good. There's a part of the end missing. So that's all I wanted to do with those two. And then these ones here, I'm going to put a decal number 6, because that's the number for, I think, certain, that's the number for government explosives and cartridges. Anyway, I'll use a water slide decal for those. Or a dry transfer. I'll set it up and we'll see how that works. Make sure that's in focus. I'll show you these ones here. These are the explosive ones. The red should get the attention of the carrier. Or you could have a figurine carrying this with a cigarette in his mouth. Anyway, there you go. Water slide, dry transfer on painted placards on the scratch-built ammo crates. They look pretty good, actually. You know, strewn around, they should work out really well. Pretty happy with those.